What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with some more Strung Out. And indeed, we're going to start going through the next Strung Out album, Suburban Teenage Wasteland Blues. Once again, shout out to major friend and champion of the channel, Polly, who sent over the Volume 1 collection, as well as a couple other albums and other things beyond that. And yeah, let's see. Another Day in Paradise, the album we just finished going, there was 94. I don't see it here, although there's an awesome article, or it's sort of a history of the making of the album, written by two people, although I think the longer one is written by Jake Kiley, and the other one is written by Chris Aiken. But yeah, they talk about at the beginning how making this album was like the fucking Odyssey, and it's like maybe that's a bit melodramatic, but it really was fucking crazy. So I enjoyed reading the description of that. And yeah, let's see, is it 95? It's got to be 95 or 96, but let's just be precise here. Okay, so yeah, like I said, Another Day in Paradise was 94, and then Suburban Teenage Wasteland Blues was 96. And then the one that I actually did have back in the day was 98. That's Twisted by Design. We'll get there eventually. But I do remember this album being out, because again, I had a couple friends who were into some bands that I didn't necessarily follow all that closely, like Strung Out, like, I don't know, Lagwagon and some other bands. Nevertheless, I do remember this and thinking that's a really cool name for an album, and wondering whether, I always blank on the name, but I don't know, it's like 60s or 70s, but maybe even, it can't be later than 70s, but that track, which uses the phrase Teenage Wasteland, but it's not called that, I forget, it has a weird name. But I wondered, because I had already heard that, because my brother was into, classic rock and some other older musical styles. I remember wondering whether it's a play off of that phrase, but saying like, but now it's like, 90s suburbia, and it's, we're adding, blues on the end. So I wondered if it was a play off of that phrase. But either way, it's a clever and catchy title for the album. I do enjoy the, 1950s style, sort of informational film kind of image that is then distorted, and the eye coming out of the TV and so on. So I like the imagery and the concept seemingly for the album overall. The first track on the album is called Firecracker. A firecracker, it's explosive, it is a bright and very short-lived spectacle, and indeed you could say a firecracker is spectacular in the sense that you're compelled to look at it without, thinking one way or the other about it, whether, you enjoy fireworks or not. If one goes off, it's like you can't avoid seeing it, hearing it, and at least momentarily diverting your attention. So yeah, there's a spectacle involved, it is bright and it is explosive, so all these things could work well as metaphors about some incident between people, or perhaps a person who is himself or herself like a firecracker, and that you kind of can't turn away, but it's also dangerous to get too close. I feel like there's a number of ways you could do or interpret it figuratively, but let's find out. This is Firecracker by Strung Out, the first tune on their 1996 album Suburban Teenage Wasteland Blues.
You're gonna go to jail, you're put inside a cage, then forced to enlist. Well, lost our lives in a world of bloody little walls, and qualified and shipped up to fight your fucking wars. Cause war's not that policy, religion's by economy, and I'm not down to set your country free.
Catching some of it here.
I'll never buy your expectation, never have it ever will. Never probably trying to figure out a man my own free will. So shredded as a tickle in the film. How my colors are not coming, so never capital.
All back to talk.
Back to the weapon, the last of the stairs, yes, my love, I wanna see the sun.
that vocal extension. Fantastic, brilliant opener. I love it. I caught way more of the lyrics in the first, I don't know, 30 or 40 seconds than I did for the remainder of the tune. What I did hear suggested that maybe it's like, hey, I'm not going to go off and essentially be a human firecracker. I'm not going to fight wars for, purposes and people who have, bad interests and who are ultimately going to lead to a lot of innocent deaths. I'm not going to be an agent of that destruction. I'm not going to throw away my life because someone has either territorial or commercial ambitions and wants to use state machinery of violence to achieve it. So again, maybe I was hearing some of that wrong, and again, the latter half of the tune I didn't catch much at all because part of it I just was interested in the sonics and the sequencing of the tune, the chronology of the different sections. But yeah, so what I did catch maybe suggests it's about not wanting to be a human firecracker in that sense. But a really cool opener, and I'll give it some more listens, see if I can catch more, and eventually, by the 6th or 7th listen, if I'm still struggling to catch some lines, I will always try to consult actual lyric sheets just to make sure I'm not missing something important. So yeah, more listens on the way lyrically, but sonically a brilliant opener. I love the speed with which they play. One of the things that has always been of interest to me in music is fast music. Now, don't get me wrong, I listen to true ambient, just really non-percussive soundscapes and so on. I listen to lots of music that's slower, but the reality is, whether it's techno or indeed hardcore, or punk rock, or even hip hop, things that maybe you don't think so much in terms of being faster or slower. Even then, I tend to like things that are a bit faster and a bit heavier and harder in terms of the sound. So the speed with which Strung Out plays, and like I keep saying, the precision of their sound at that high speed, which I think that's pretty well understood, that there's things that are perhaps a bit easier to do at slower tempos. Now, I'm sure you could probably find something to say actually doing this at a slower tempo is more challenging from a performance standpoint or whatever. But generally speaking, playing things very, very fast, it tends to get maybe a bit more out of sync unless everyone is really on point with what they're doing. So I am impressed by that. Once again, shout out to Paulie. Do let me know what you think of this one. The next time we come back to the album, we will be up to Better Days. I enjoy the sound of that. It immediately makes me think of Wu-Tang Forever's Better Tomorrow, or A Better Tomorrow. First a track on their Wu-Tang Forever album, and then later in 2016 or something an album itself. But yeah, ultimately we'll think more about that phrase when we get there. Let me know what you think of this one. I will see you next time. Peace.